I'm Daniel, 24 years old, and I have spent my whole life fighting for recognition in a family that never truly saw me. Growing up, I learned early that I was the invisible one, the reliable child who didn't ask for much and, therefore, never got much in return. Meanwhile, my younger sister Lily was the shining star, the adored, pampered, and endlessly defended golden child. It wasn't just about favoritism. It was a system. If Lily wanted something, she got it. New clothes, the latest phone, a trip to Europe. She never even had to ask. I, on the other hand, worked for everything. I took on side jobs, saved every dollar, and built myself up piece by piece, knowing that no safety net existed for me. While she had the luxury of carefree spending, I was the one working after school, saving every dime for things she got handed to her. When I asked for something, the answer was always, "Daniel, you need to be responsible. We can't just hand you everything." I heard that line over and over again, but somehow it never applied to Lily. I always thought that if I worked hard enough, my parents would one day recognize my efforts, that they'd finally see I was worth something. But that day never came. Instead, what happened shattered my belief that family would ever have my back. It was a Saturday night, and I had just finished a grueling double shift at the restaurant, where I worked part-time while finishing my last semester at university. My feet ached, my head was pounding, and all I wanted was to relax. As usual, before bed, I checked my bank account, a habit I had developed over years of financial self-reliance. But when I opened my app, my stomach dropped. Multiple unauthorized charges, a flurry of transactions I hadn't made, over $6,000 gone. Airline tickets, designer boutiques, a luxury spa, even a stay at an upscale hotel 3 states away. For a moment I convinced myself it was a mistake, maybe a glitch, maybe the bank made an error. But deep down, I knew better. And when I scrolled further, I saw it. Some of the charges were tied to her. Lily's online accounts, her shopping apps, even food deliveries. My sister had stolen my credit card information and gone on a spending spree. I gripped my phone, my hands trembling as I sent the text. "Lily, did you use my credit cards?" Minutes passed. Then her reply, "What? No, you're probably just confused. Maybe you forgot about your own spending." I felt a rush of fury. Liar. I knew exactly how much I had spent. I had never been irresponsible with money, and she knew it too. I dug deeper. I logged into my bank portal, checking the transaction details. The locations matched where she had been posting about on social media. She had been flaunting my money, wearing expensive outfits and dining at places I could never afford for myself, and she had the audacity to pretend she didn't know? I had never felt so furious in my life. I tried to calm myself, but my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Had she done this before? And what would have happened if I hadn't caught it in time? Would she have kept taking from me until I had nothing left? The next morning, I stormed into our parents' house, my jaw clenched, my phone gripped tight in my hand. Lily was sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through her phone without a care in the world. She looked up at me lazily, smirking. "Morning, big bro. What's up?" I shoved my phone in her face. "Explain. Now." Her smirk faltered for just a second before she regained her fake innocence. "Relax, Danny. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal? She had stolen thousands from me. I could barely keep my voice steady. "You stole my credit card information, Lily. This isn't some joke." She groaned, rolling her eyes. "It's not like you don't have money. Chill out." Chill out? She had just committed fraud, and she was acting like it was nothing, a second I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. But then the anger flared again. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about fairness, about the years of being pushed aside while she got away with everything. I could barely contain my rage. But what happened next was even worse. That evening, my phone buzzed. "Mom, come over, we need to talk." I expected them to be angry, furious that Lily had betrayed me, maybe even ready to force her to take accountability. I should have known better. As I drove to my parents' house, a part of me clung to a small sliver of hope. Maybe they finally saw Lily for who she really was. Maybe they would apologize, acknowledge the injustice, and make her take responsibility. But deep down, I already knew the truth. When I walked into the house, my mother and father sat stiffly on the couch, their expressions unreadable. Lily sat beside them, her eyes downcast, performing the role of the innocent victim. I felt a wave of anger hit me at the sight of her. Just hours ago, she had been smirking at me, acting like stealing thousands of dollars was nothing. And now she looked helpless, worried, like she was the one who had been wronged. This was an act. And my parents, as always, were falling for it. Dad cleared his throat, his voice stiff. "Son, you need to let this go." I frowned. "Let it go? She stole from me." Mom sighed, rubbing her temples. "It's complicated, Daniel. Lily is young, she made a mistake. But she's your sister, and family sticks together." I clenched my fists. There it was. The same old excuse. She didn't make a mistake. She committed fraud. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You do realize that, right? If it were a stranger, you'd be telling me to press charges. But because it's Lily, you expect me to just, what? Pretend it didn't happen?" "Daniel," my mom said in a softer, condescending tone, "this is not the kind of thing we want to escalate. You have a good job. You're responsible. Can't you just take care of it?" I felt like I had been slapped. "Take care of it?" I repeated slowly, as if trying to make sense of their words. "You want me to pay for what she did?" Dad leaned forward, his voice dangerously low. "If you don't, then we're done helping you, Daniel. No more support, no more family." I had never felt so alone. They were willing to cut me off, to abandon me, not Lily, the one who had actually done wrong. I looked at my mom, then my dad, searching their faces for even a hint of remorse, of fairness. But there was nothing. Just disappointment. In me, not in Lily, who had stolen. Not in themselves, for defending her. In me. I let out a hollow laugh. "So let me get this straight. You expect me to just forget that she stole from me? To just smile and pretend it never happened?" My mom folded her arms. "Daniel, you're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I laughed bitterly. "If I had stolen from Lily, would you be telling her the same thing?" A tense silence filled the room. I already knew the answer. They wouldn't have defended me. They wouldn't have excused my actions. They wouldn't have told Lily to let it go, or that I was just going through a phase. I had always known I was the outsider in my own family, but this moment confirmed it. Lily sniffled, finally deciding to speak up. "Daniel, I didn't mean—" I turned to her, fury bubbling in my chest. Don't act like this was an accident. You knew exactly what you were doing. You stole from me, and now you're playing the victim. I'm sick of it." She gasped, as if I had physically struck her. But I wasn't done. "For years, I've watched you get away with everything. You never face consequences. You lie, you manipulate, and they let you." I gestured toward our parents. "And they expect me to let you walk all over me, too." Dad stood up abruptly. "That's enough." "No," I shot back. "It's not. I'm sick of being treated like I don't matter. I worked hard for everything I have. Everything. And now I'm supposed to just cover for her because you don't want to admit that she's a spoiled, entitled brat?" Mom shook her head, exasperated. "She's family, Daniel. We don't turn our backs on family." I let out a bitter chuckle. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you turned your backs on me." Another silence. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was defining. They weren't going to apologize. They weren't going to change. Lily wasn't going to change. I took a slow breath, letting the realization sink in. Then, with as much control as I could muster, I picked up my jacket. "I hope you enjoy your perfect daughter," I said, my voice steady but ice cold, "because you just lost your son." And with that, I walked out. The door shut behind me with a finality I hadn't expected. I thought I would feel pain, regret, second-guessing, but I didn't. For the first time in my life, I felt free. But that freedom came with a new purpose. They weren't getting away with this. The drive back to my apartment was a blur. I should have been shocked, devastated even. My parents had just chosen her over me. Again. But instead, I felt a strange sense of clarity. For years, I had told myself that if I worked hard enough, if I proved myself enough, they would finally treat me as their equal. But now I saw the truth. They never would, and that meant I had to stop playing their game. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat anymore. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. And most of all, I wasn't going to let Lily get away with this. The first thing I did when I got home was file a fraud report with my bank. I explained everything. How my credit card information had been stolen. how I had identified the transactions, and how I knew who was responsible. The bank took my case seriously. They flagged the charges as fraudulent and assured me they would launch an investigation. But that wasn't enough. Lily needed to learn that actions have consequences, so I started digging. At first, I only meant to find evidence for the fraud case. But the deeper I looked, the more I uncovered. Lily hadn't just stolen from me. She had done this before. Old texts, social media posts, and conversations with former friends revealed a disturbing pattern. She had borrowed money from people and never paid them back. She had used emotional manipulation to guilt-trip people into covering her expenses. There was even a post from one of her ex-friends, ranting about how Lily had borrowed her credit card for an emergency and then racked up $500 in charges at a luxury spa. My stomach twisted. How had I never seen this before? How had my parents never seen this? Or maybe they had. Maybe they just didn't want to see it. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I compiled every piece of evidence I had. Screenshots of the transactions, texts from Lily admitting to taking money, testimonies from people she had wronged. Then, I sent it all to my parents. I didn't add a single word of explanation, just the cold, undeniable truth. And then I waited. The next morning, my phone rang. I answered without saying a word. It was my dad. His voice was tense. "Daniel, what the hell is this?" I let out a slow breath. "Proof. You're trying to ruin your sister's life over a few mistakes?" I clenched my jaw. "Dad, she stole $6,000 from me. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. She's family. So that makes it okay?" My voice rose. "How many other people has she stolen from? How many lies has she told? How much longer are you going to cover for her?" Silence. Then, a sigh. "Daniel, we need to talk about this as a family." I let out a bitter laugh. "That's funny, because when I came to you yesterday you didn't want to talk. You just wanted me to let it go. We just don't want to see this family fall apart. This family was already broken," I said coldly. "You just never noticed." And then I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally wake up and hold Lily accountable. But instead, they did what they always did. They defended her. A few days later, I got a text from my mom. "You've made things worse, Daniel. People are talking. Lily is upset. Was that really necessary?" I stared at the message, my blood boiling. Was it necessary? Was it necessary for her to steal from me? Was it necessary for them to threaten me instead of punishing her? I should have been used to this by now, but it still hurt. I took a deep breath and typed my response. Yes, it was necessary. Then I blocked her number. For the next few weeks, I focused on cleaning up the mess Lily had made of my finances. My bank refunded most of the fraudulent charges. I had to freeze some of my accounts, but I was lucky. I had caught it early, but not everyone had been so lucky. Word about Lily's theft spread fast. People she had scammed in the past started speaking up. One girl made a post about how Lily had guilt-tripped her into covering rent one month and then blocked her when she asked for repayment. Another person came forward with proof that Lily had sold fake designer bags online, scamming buyers out of hundreds of dollars. Lily's reputation was crumbling, and for the first time, our parents couldn't protect her. One night I got another text. This time, from Lily. "Daniel, can we talk?" I almost ignored it, but something in me wanted to hear what she had to say, so I answered. "What do you want?" Her reply came quickly. I didn't mean for things to go this far. I wasn't thinking. I messed up. I stared at the screen. Was this an apology or just another manipulation? Before I could respond, another message came in. "Mom and Dad are really mad. They won't even talk to me. I think they're actually done with me." I blinked. That was new. For years, my parents had always bailed her out. They had always shielded her from the consequences of her actions, but this time, even, they couldn't ignore the truth. I leaned back, rereading her messages. Maybe Lily really was sorry, maybe she wasn't. Either way, it didn't matter. I wasn't here to fix her mistakes. I wasn't here to be the brother who cleaned up her mess, so I typed my final response. "You did this to yourself, Lily." And then I turned off my phone, because for the first time in my life, I didn't owe her anything. Lily's message kept replaying in my head. "Mom and Dad are really mad. They won't even talk to me. I think they're actually done with me." At first I thought she was exaggerating. My parents had spent years making excuses for her. Years bailing her out, shielding her from consequences. But this time, something was different. They weren't sweeping things under the rug. They weren't covering for her. They were ignoring her. The next few days were eerily quiet. No more angry texts from Mom. No calls from Dad, demanding I fix this mess. And Lily? She was silent. No new social media posts. No pictures of expensive meals. No influencer-style updates bragging about her glamorous lifestyle. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel relief, satisfaction even. But all I felt was nothing. For the first time, Lily had to deal with her own problems, and for the first time, I wasn't responsible for cleaning up after her. Then I got a call from an unexpected number. At first I thought it was spam, but when I answered, the voice on the other end made my stomach drop. Daniel? It's Aunt Rachel. My mother's older sister. The only person in the family who had ever openly called out my parents' favoritism. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. What's going on? I asked cautiously. A pause. Then a sigh. It's about Lily, she said. I closed my eyes. Of course it was. What about her? She showed up at my house yesterday, Rachel admitted. She's a mess, Daniel. She said she had nowhere else to go, that your parents weren't helping her anymore. I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. She begged me to loan her money. She said she was completely broke, that she had debts piling up, and she had no one left. I should have felt bad for her. But I didn't. Instead, I felt something else. Justice. So what did you do? I asked. Rachel hesitated. I told her no. That surprised me. Lily cried. She continued. She swore up and down that she'd pay me back. But Daniel, I've seen what she's done to you. I know she's never faced real consequences, so I told her I wouldn't give her a dime. I let out a slow breath. And she stormed out, Rachel said. I think she thought she could manipulate me like she did your parents. But I wasn't buying it. For the first time, someone else in the family saw Lily for who she really was, and they weren't falling for it. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling. Lily had burned every bridge she had. She had taken from me, from others, and expected to never pay for it. But now she had no one left to turn to. Her entire life had been built on manipulation, on getting what she wanted through deception and charm. And for the first time, it wasn't working. For the first time, she was completely alone. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I could finally move on. But then the final blow came. A week later, I got another call. This time, from Dad. I debated ignoring it, but something told me to pick up. His voice was tired, hollow, defeated. Daniel, he said. Your mother and we need to talk, I sighed. I don't have anything left to say. This isn't about you, he admitted. It's about Lily. I clenched my jaw. What about her? Dad hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he said the words I never thought I'd hear. She's being sued. I sat up, gripping the phone tighter. What? Some girl she scammed out of money is pressing charges, Dad muttered. It's all over social media. People are coming forward, Daniel. They're saying she's a thief, a liar. And we can't protect her from this. I should have seen this coming. Lily's scams had finally caught up to her. And now, she wasn't just losing money or reputation. She was facing legal consequences. I took a slow breath. So what do you want from me? Dad was silent for a long time. Then he finally spoke. We thought maybe you could talk to her. Help her. I almost laughed. Help her? I repeated. You mean after she stole from me? After you told me to let it go? Dad's voice cracked. She's your sister, Daniel. No, I said, my voice hard. She stopped being my sister the moment she betrayed me. Another silence. For the first time, I had the power. Not them. Not Lily. Me. I ended the call without another word, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, because this time, it wasn't my problem. Lily had built a life of deception. She had spent years conning people, using them, discarding them. And now, she was finally facing the consequences. I had spent my whole life trying to prove myself to a family that never saw my worth. But I didn't need their approval anymore. I had won. And Lily? Lily had lost everything. Lily's downfall wasn't instant. It was a slow, painful process, one that she fought every step of the way. At first, she tried to ignore it. She acted like nothing was wrong, continuing to post filtered, perfect snapshots of her life. The expensive brunches, the luxury outfits, the glamorous nights out. But behind the scenes, the cracks were spreading. Her friends started pulling away. People were talking. Screenshots of her scams were circulating. Old acquaintances were coming forward, sharing their own horror stories of how she had manipulated them, used them, taken money she never repaid. And then, the final blow came. The lawsuit. It wasn't just a bluff. The girl Lily had scammed out of thousands had real evidence, texts, transactions, a clear-cut case of fraud. And Lily? She had no defense. For weeks, she tried to negotiate. She tried everything. First, she begged our parents to cover her legal fees, but, for once, they said no. It turned out they weren't as financially stable as they pretended to be. Years of bailing Lily out had drained them. They couldn't afford to save her anymore. Then, she turned to her so-called friends, but they had already abandoned her. No one wanted to be associated with a public scammer. She was out of options, and that's when she did something I never expected. She called me. At first, I ignored the calls. I wanted nothing to do with her. But when she left a voicemail, something in her tone made me pause. She sounded broken. "Daniel, please, I don't know what to do. I have nobody left. Mom and Dad won't even look at me. Her voice cracked. "I know I messed up. I know I deserve this, but please, I need help." For a second I felt something. Not pity, not sympathy, just closure. For the first time, Lily knew what it felt like to be abandoned. She knew what it felt like to have no support, to be left to fend for herself, just like I had been my whole life. I took a deep breath and called her back. She answered on. "The first ring. Daniel?" Her voice was shaky, desperate. I was silent for a long moment. Then I spoke. "You stole from me." "I know," she whispered. "I was stupid. Selfish. I thought I could just fix it later." I let out a bitter laugh. "And now you can't." Another pause. Then the real confession. "Daniel, I never thought they'd turn their backs on me," she admitted. "Mom and Dad, they always—" She stopped, inhaling sharply. "I thought no matter what, they'd always be there." "And now?" I pressed. Another silence. Then a quiet, broken reply. "Now I know what it feels like." For the first time, I believed she was telling the truth. She wasn't just upset about the lawsuit. She was genuinely shocked that our parents had finally chosen to let her fall. She had spent her whole life believing she was untouchable. That no matter what, someone would always rescue her. But this time? No one was coming. I let out a slow breath. "So why are you calling me?" I don't know," she admitted. "I guess I just thought, maybe you'd understand." I closed my eyes. "Understand?" Oh, I understood too well. But the difference between us, I had never had a safety net. I had never expected someone to clean up my messes. I had built everything on my own. And now she was being forced to do the same. "You have to fix this yourself, Lily," I said finally. "I can't save you." Her breath hitched. I don't know how." "You'll figure it out," I said, my voice calm. She let out a shuddering sigh. "I'm sorry, Daniel." For the first time, I actually believed her. She was sorry, but that didn't change anything. Some mistakes were too big to fix. Lily went quiet after that. She faced the lawsuit alone. She was forced to pay back what she had stolen. She got a real job for the first time in her life. And for the first time ever, she had to live without the privilege of being bailed out. And me? I finally let go. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter because I had won. Lily had spent her whole life believing she was superior to me. And now she was struggling just to survive. One day, months later, I got one last text from her. "I get it now." That was all she said. And honestly, that was all I needed. For the first time in my life, I felt free. No guilt, no anger, no weight on my shoulders. Lily had finally faced the consequences of her actions. And my parents, they had finally learned that blind favoritism has a price. I had spent years fighting for their approval, years bending over backward to prove my worth. But in the end, I had realized something. I didn't need their approval. I had built a life for myself without them. And I was finally, truly, happy. A few months passed, and life moved on. I focused on myself, my career, my finances, my future. With Lily out of my life and my parents refusing to acknowledge their mistakes, I felt lighter than I ever had before. For the first time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder waiting for the next betrayal. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for their love because I didn't need it anymore. Then, one day, I got a message from my mother. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time. A few months ago, I would have jumped at the opportunity. I would have held on to hope that maybe, just maybe, they had changed. But now I knew better. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I let myself think. Did I even want to talk to them? Did I want to reopen wounds that had finally started to heal? After everything, did they even deserve to be a part of my life? A part of me still wanted to believe they could change. But the bigger part of me, the wiser part, knew that some people never change, and I wasn't willing to gamble my peace to find out. A week passed. I never replied. Then I got another message, this time from my dad. "We miss you, son. Let's fix this." I scoffed. Fix this? They had never tried to fix anything before. They had always expected me to be the one to fix things. And now that they had lost their golden child, they were realizing that maybe, just maybe, they had made a mistake, but it was too late. A few days later, I ran into an old family friend at a coffee shop. She recognized me instantly. "Daniel!" she exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "How have you been? Your parents talk about you all the time." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? What do they say?" She hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "Well, they said they've been trying to reach you. That you're being stubborn. That you're holding a grudge against Lily even after she's changed." I laughed bitterly. Of course, even now they were trying to paint me as the villain. Even after everything, they still refused to take responsibility. I thanked the woman for her time and walked away. That conversation had confirmed everything I already knew. My parents weren't reaching out because they regretted what they did. They were reaching out because they were lonely, because their perfect daughter had let them down. And now, they were trying to pull me back in, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. Not ever again. I never replied to their messages. Eventually, they stopped trying, and I moved on. I built a new life, one that was mine. I surrounded myself with people who actually respected me. I created my own family, the kind built on love and mutual support, not guilt and manipulation. And you know what? I was happier than I had ever been. One day, out of pure curiosity, I checked Lily's social media. Her life had changed. She was working a regular job, living in a small apartment, no designer clothes, no extravagant vacations, just reality. For the first time, she was living in the real world. And honestly, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel smug. I just felt indifferent, because her life wasn't my concern anymore. A year later, I got one last message from Lily. "Hey, I just wanted to say I understand now. I know it doesn't mean much, but I really am sorry." I read the message twice, and then I deleted it. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but because I didn't need an apology. I had already moved on. I spent my entire life believing that family was everything. That no matter what, you had to stick together. But now I knew the truth. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect. And if someone refuses to respect you, then they don't deserve to be in your life. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I was free. And that was the greatest revenge of all. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.